Hey everyone! Today I'm going to show you how to make this cozy pair of sweatpants for a stuffed animal. This was made to fit a Build-A-Bear or any similarly sized stuffed animal. Now let's get started! The materials you'll need to make these are pins, scissors, fabric. I'm using an old gray t-shirt just to get that sweatpants look. And you'll also need some elastics. One really thick long one and two shorter thin pieces. And you also need some yarn. And the last thing is your pattern. You only need one for this one, and I'll have the ones I made linked below. Now to cut out my pieces, I have my fabric laid out on a cutting mat, but you can always do this with scissors. And now I'm just going to fold my t-shirt in half, and then place the pattern on top, and then I'm going to pin this on to both layers of fabric, so when I cut this out, I already have my two pieces ready. I like to use the cutting blade for the straight edges, and go in with scissors for the curves. After that's done, as you can see here, there is some print on the good side of the shirt since this is one of my sister's old school shirts. So I'm going to be using the inside of the shirt for the outside of my sweatpants. And the first thing I'm going to do is fold up the long bottom edge. And I want to make sure it's thick enough for this thin elastic to eventually fit through it. And so I'm just going to fold this up and pin it in place. And I forgot to mention that my two pieces of thin elastic are 8 inches long, and the thicker piece is 15.5 inches long. But these measurements can be adjusted for your own stuffed animal. And once I have it all pinned in place, I'm going to do a straight line right along the bottom with my sewing machine. After hemming both of those, I'm going to lay them good side to good side, and I'm just going to match them up the best that I can, and then I'm going to pin together the less deep of the two curves, and it actually really doesn't matter which curve you start with, but I'm just going to pin right around there and then do a straight stitch following the curve. After that, I'm just going to open it up and flip it with the bad side facing up. And now I'm going to fold down a lot of that top edge, and that's because I have a really thick elastic that I'm going to use. And you can use thinner ones, but I just found that sweatpants usually have a very thick band at the top. So that's why I went with a thicker one. And now I'm just folding over this top edge a lot, making sure it will be wide enough for the elastic to fit through. And then I'm just going to pin this all the way down and sew it with a straight stitch. Now it's time to add the top elastic, so I put a safety pin at the end of mine like always, just to make it easier to push through. And so I'm just inserting it through one open end. And as you're pushing the safety pin through, the material will start to gather, and when that happens, I just pull it down. And then I'm just going to continue doing this till the elastic is all the way through. And since the elastic is shorter, the material will get scrunched up, so you want to make sure to just hang on to that other end of the elastic so it doesn't get lost. And now I'm just adjusting that fabric around the elastic to make it more even. After that, I'm just going to flip it inside out, and then line up those remaining two curves, and then I'm just going to pin them together. And I'm going to go all the way to the top of the elastic, and pin the two ends of those together as well. And at this point you can try it on your stuffed animal to see if you need to pull the elastic out a little bit more. And then I'm just going to do a straight stitch following this curve. After that, I'm going to trim off the extra elastic, and now it's time to feed the thinner elastics through the bottoms. So I have a tiny safety pin right here, but a normal one will probably fit as well. So I'm just pinning this to the end and inserting it into one of the pieces openings at the bottom. So I'm just feeding this through the same way I did before, but with this one, the elastic's actually a lot shorter than the fabric it's going through, and that's just because this is fitting around the stuffed animal's legs, which is a lot skinnier. So just make sure to hold on to that other end of the elastic because it's going to get pretty tight as you go through. And after doing each side, I'm just going to make sure to pin together the elastic so it stays in place. And now I'm just doing the same thing to the other side. After that, I'm going to lay the pants down and start pinning together the inside of these pant legs. And this is still with the pants turned inside out. And after everything's pinned, I'm just going to do a straight stitch closing this up. Now I'm just going to trim off the extra elastic and you are pretty much done. But the last thing I'm going to do is add those little strings that sweatpants usually have to tighten them. This won't actually tighten them, but I think it just adds to the look. Now I'm just cutting off a piece of yarn that can be as long or as short as you want, but 8 to 9 inches is probably a good length to start at. And so right now I'm just going to make these teeny tiny cuts, probably 1/4 inch away from the center seam, and these are where the string is going to be pulled through. I was having trouble feeding the yarn through the holes directly, so I decided to put my yarn through this giant plastic needle I found, and that way it's easier to pull through the holes, or you could tie the string to a safety pin and do the same thing. After that, I'm going to make tiny knots at the end so they won't be able to get pulled back through the holes, so I'd recommend doing a double or triple knot. I just did a single knot here because I wasn't sure if I wanted to replace the string and actually make it longer, but I ended up just leaving it like this, and now I'm just going to kind of pull apart the ends so they're a little fluffier. And after that, your sweatpants are done! So now I'm going to try this on my stuffed animal, and she's already wearing this crew neck I showed how to make in a previous video, and it's made using the same t-shirt, so I thought it would be cute that it's matching, so it kind of looks like a little lounge set. Now I'm just going to adjust them the way I want to and then tie the strings into a bow. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Comment below if you've tried making any of these outfits, and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more. I post new videos every single Friday, and if you have Instagram, you can follow me at LixiePig. I'll see you next time!